During the progressive era, you also see a rise in the feminist movement. Okay, it's where this is the time period where the term feminism began to be used for the first time. Okay, so you got a number of different aspects of the feminist movement in the progressive era. You got the birth control movement, right, where women are fighting to have control over their bodies, right? The right to have sex, not just for reproduction, right? It's not just about having kids, but just for pleasure or for, just their choice. Okay, so you got this idea of women using birth control to not get pregnant, right? Controlling their bodies, making decisions for themselves. So you have activists like Emma Goldman, who are out speaking out for birth control rights. You got Margaret Sanger, who developed Planned Parenthood. You guys ever hear of Planned Parenthood? Sanger was, handing out contraceptives to people in poor neighborhoods, the immigrant neighborhoods in New York. She gets arrested for it, right? So it sounds like she's like, a major activist who's trying to fight for the birth control movement. But in reality, Margaret Sanger was heavily into eugenics, right? This idea of shaping the population, trying to get rid of certain people in the population. She was also a racist. She was targeting African Americans. She wanted to kind of slowly, gradually contribute to the extermination of African Americans, as well as others in society who she felt were undesirables, right? So, Margaret Sanger, you gotta have a clear perspective on what she was thinking and why she was supporting birth control at the time. Then you have other female activists at the time who were supporting immigrant communities, who wanted to help the immigrant poor. We were talking about how many immigrants suffered poverty. One way to try to improve their situation was the development of something called Hull House. Right? Hull House was established by Jane Addams, another feminist activist. And she basically was trying to create these what are called settlement houses in the United States. This is something that also existed abroad in England as well. But basically these settlement houses would be established, and you'd have mostly middle-class women working at these settlement houses, or in this case, Hull House, right? And this is not just in one city. It's not just in Chicago where Jane Addams established the first Hull House, but eventually it's just like a national movement. And so you have these settlement houses where immigrants can come and they could get access to education, they could get access to clinics, and other services as well that are provided there at the Hull House. So you have feminist activists looking to make a change during this progressive era, trying to deal with social inequalities. You also have the women's suffrage movement continuing during this period. We've talked a little bit about women's suffrage before. Women are fighting for the right to vote at this time, and they are having some success in the states. So at a state level, women are winning the right to vote during the progressive era, okay? Mostly in the West. Right, you see women gaining the right to vote in local elections, but still not yet quite at the national level. So women are looking to get an amendment to the Constitution, which will ensure their right to vote. You also have reforms that are being put in place by progressives for mothers at the time, right? Maternalist reforms. All right, so an example of maternalist reforms are the mother's pension. Okay, this is basically government financial support for single mothers. Okay, there's no husband in the home. The woman may be struggling to take care of the family, so the government steps in to help her have a degree of economic independence and to take care of her children. You also have some changes being made in law concerning women workers. Remember, we said more and more women are joining the workforce during this time. Well, there's a case, Mueller versus Oregon, which is argued by Louis D. Brandeis, and Brandeis is making the case that women should have shorter working hours than men. Now, his ideology behind this may not be feminist, right? He's saying that women are weaker than men and they can't stand the long hours, it might hurt them, and women are the ones who are having the children, so we need to pass laws that are going to protect them. And Brandeis successfully argues his case. And so the verdict in Mueller versus Oregon is that, yes, states can pass laws to limit the work hours of women. And so when the Supreme Court upholds that, you're going to have a number of states around the country passing laws that limit the amount of working hours for women.